Thanksgiving is over, which means we're into the Christmas season, and I'm going to rank my top 5 favorite Christmas movies. What are they? I'll let you know. Hi everyone, my name is Bob and welcome to Was It Good, where I give you my movie and TV reviews. And today we're going to be doing something a little bit differently, as I'm going to be ranking my top 5 favorite Christmas movies, as well as throwing in a couple of honorable mentions. Now, I just want to point out that this list are my favorite movies, not necessarily the ones that I consider the best. Also, I would really like to know what your favorites are. Why don't you go ahead and let me know in the comment section below. If you want to rank them, you can go ahead and do so, or just list them, whichever. But I'd really like to know which ones are your favorite Christmas movies. As always, don't forget to hit that like button, share the video, subscribe to the channel. Now let's get to the ranking. I'm going to start with a couple of honorable mentions, and the first one is National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. This is a movie that I really enjoyed when it came out, and I still enjoy it to this day. In fact, I recently did a rewatch of it, and I still love this film. I enjoy the fact that you've got Clark Griswold, who's played by Chevy Chase. He's got his family, Ellen, his son Russell, and his daughter Audrey, and Clark, he's trying to put on the perfect vacation for them, just like he does in all of these vacation films, and everything just seems to go wrong. He ends up getting a tree that's too big for his living room, and it ends up breaking several of the windows. He tries to light up the house, and none of the bulbs work. And once he does finally get it working, it seems to siphon off power from the town that's surrounding it. It blinds the neighbors in their room. He also has his tree burned down. His cousin Eddie shows up, who he doesn't really want there, and of course he shows up in his RV along with his family, and he's using the sewer system to empty out his septic tank, and just everything seems to be going wrong for him. You have an incident with a squirrel. You even have a real funny incident over dinner where he's got one of his aunts there that I think is absolutely hilarious when they ask her to say grace, and you have this little moment.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
Despite all of these setbacks, the Griswolds are able to come together and really enjoy Christmas together. And because they are able to come together as a family, you get this warm feelings in several parts of the movie. So overall, I really had a blast with this one, and it is the first of my honorable mentions. The second of my honorable mentions is The Muppet Christmas Carol. Now, this is yet again another adaptation of Charles Dickens' classic story, A Christmas Carol, but it's also a Muppet movie, which means the Muppets are going to bring their own little flair to it.
Any bookkeeping staff would like to have an extra shovel full of coal for the fire?
How would the bookkeepers like to be suddenly
unemployed?
As with all Muppet movies, you got a lot of singing and dancing that turns out to be a lot of fun. We have all of our favorite Muppets in this movie. You got Kermit the Frog as Bob Cratchit, Miss Piggy as Emily Cratchit, Fozzie Bear shows up as Fezziwig, and Gonzo is playing Charles Dickens and actually narrating the movie. But the real star of the film is Michael Caine as Ebenezer Scrooge.
humbug?
He plays the character very well. He's exactly what you would expect from Scrooge early on, in that he's very cold towards his fellow man. But as he goes on the arc that Scrooge goes on, he brings this warmth to the character that's very good for a Muppet movie. There's even a portion where he has to do a little bit of singing, which I think he does fine on. And overall, I think he fits very well for this adaptation. And the adaptation itself is pretty good. So you have a good star playing the character, and the adaptation overall is pretty good. So The Muppet Christmas Carol is my second honorable mention. Now we get into my top 5, and we're going to start off at number 5 with the movie Scrooged. This is a movie that stars Bill Murray and was directed by Richard Donner. Now, this is an adaptation of Charles Dickens' classic story, but it has a modern twist to it, where Bill Murray plays Frank Cross, who's a television executive, and his network is putting on a live production of the Scrooge story. Now, he's exactly what you would expect from the Scrooge character. Everybody's afraid of him.
If I were in charge, and I am.
He's cold, he's mean, nobody's safe from him, not even on Christmas.
He's fired? But it's Christmas.
Thank you. Call accounting. Stop his bonus.
But as goes with all adaptations of this story, he ends up encountering his former business partner. In this case, it's his boss. And that's where you begin to realize this is going to be a very different take on the Scrooge story, because this character, who's supposed to be the Jacob Marley character, boy, he looks awful.
I had it all.
Ooh.
And of course, just like all the other stories, he ends up encountering 3 ghosts who show him the past, present, and future, or his Christmas present, or past, present, and future. And he really comes to understand the meaning of Christmas. He sees his mother in the past. He reconnects with a long lost love that he had, a woman named Claire. And it's just a fun story where he gets to by the end of it because he really changes. There's even a little subplot with the guy that he fired that I thought was a lot of fun. So overall, I thought this movie was really funny. Now, it is a little bit darker, so it's not one that I think you could just sit down with the small kids and they'll enjoy it. But as far as the Scrooge adaptations, I liked the modern twist to it, and this is at my number 5. At number 4, I have the Santa Claus. Now, this is not Santa Claus the person, but as Bernard the Elf would say, this is Santa Claus the clause, like a contract. Now, the movie stars Tim Allen as Scott Calvin. He's a divorced dad, and he's got his son, or he has custody of his son over Christmas Eve. Now, his son had just found out from somebody at school that there was no Santa Claus. And so Scott really wants to preserve his son's vision and illusion of Santa Claus. And so he reads him the night before Christmas. They end up going to bed and they hear something strange up on the roof. They go outside, and that's when the fun begins. Whoa, whoa. So this man falls off the roof. Scott is not sure what to do. His son Charlie thinks that it's Santa. And so Scott figures, okay, well, let me go ahead and check his ID. He doesn't find an ID, but he finds something else.
If something should happen to me, put on my suit, the reindeer will know what to do. So
he ends up putting on the suit, and he and Charlie end up delivering presents throughout Christmas Eve to the whole world. Now, this is where it gets interesting because by putting on the suit, Scott actually accepted a contract to become the next Santa Claus. And although he believes that everything that just happened was a dream, he starts going through the Santification process where he gets fatter and his hair turns white, and he's not sure to really know what's going on. He's not sure what to believe. And Charlie has this absolute belief in him. And this is why I like this movie so much, because at the heart of it is this story between this father and this son and them growing closer together because of Charlie's belief in him. And because of that, I really enjoy the movie. Also, Tim Allen is fantastic in the role of Santa Claus, and he brings his own flair to it.
How come your clothes are so baggy?
Because Santa is watching his saturated fats.
So when you mix in Tim Allen's humor and all the heart of this story between this father and son, I really enjoy this movie, and it is my number 4. Number 3 is the only brand new movie on my list, and that is The Best Christmas Pageant Ever. Now, what sets this film apart from the other films on my list is the fact that this is the only one that has the religious nature to it. This is the one that actually goes back to the reason for the season. Most of the films on here are going to be very secular, but this is one that has the faith-based element to it, and that sets it apart from the other films. Now, the movie takes place in a small town where the local church is putting on its annual Christmas pageant, and you've got these kids that are known as the worst kids in the history of the world, and these are the Herdmans. And these kids are rotten. There's no other way to say it. But as the film goes on and they invade this Christmas pageant, you've got everybody around them trying to kick them out of the church and don't want them to be there. But these kids go on this arc because they're very curious about the Christmas story. And as they begin to know more about it, they are more open to what the real meaning of it is. And it's very interesting to see how the story impacts their lives, but ultimately how they impact the lives of the church around them as well. And so I really enjoy this aspect of it. The movie's directed by Dallas Jenkins, who was the creator of The Chosen, and I think he did a fantastic job with this movie. Judy Greer plays Grace, and she's the one actually directing the pageant. And I like how her character is willing to give the Herdmans a second chance, where everybody else is just wanting to get them out, because her character actually remembers the reason for the season.
Jesus was born for the Herdmans as much as he was for us.
The film also stars Pete Holmes and the fantastic Lauren Graham, who I really loved in this movie. I think that the film is very heartwarming and endearing. I like that it has its faith-based element. It is not overly preachy, but it never compromises its message, and it is a very entertaining film. So at number 3 is The Best Christmas Pageant Ever. My number 2 is How the Grinch Stole Christmas. This is a film that's directed by Ron Howard and stars Jim Carrey as the Grinch. Jim Carrey plays this character in the only way you would expect Jim Carrey to play him, and that is absolutely over the top.
Gaze into the face of fear.
It's not really a complicated storyline in that you've got the Grinch who hates all the Who's down in Whoville, and they're celebrating Christmas, and he devises this plan in order to dress up as Santa Claus, go down and take all of their presents, their Christmas trees and everything. And by doing so, he thinks he's going to ruin Christmas because in his mind, Christmas is about the commercialism of it. But all of this kind of backfires because after he takes everything, the Who's are still celebrating Christmas.
What is the
dear!
After all of this, the Grinch finally begins to get a realization as to what Christmas is about, and the effect that it has on him, I think, is absolutely hilarious. Jim Carrey plays it very well. Also in the movie, he develops this friendship with this little girl named Cindy Lou, and their interactions, I think, are a lot of fun. They're very endearing, and there's even a backstory as to why he hates the Who's and why he hates Christmas that the film presents. Also, when you get to the end of the film and he has this understanding about what Christmas is, I like the fact that he still finds a way to be the Grinch.
All right, that's enough. Enough, enough. Beat it!
I found the movie to be very entertaining. I thought it was heartwarming, and Jim Carrey delivered a really good performance, and for these reasons, I got it at my number 2. Real quick, before I get into my favorite Christmas movie, I want to remind everyone to go ahead and check out the other videos on my channel. Maybe I've done a movie review on something that you're interested in or that you've seen already and you'd like to share with me what you thought about it. Also, for those that are interested, I do have another YouTube channel with a couple of friends of mine where we put on a show called Dad's Turn to Talk. This is an opportunity for 3 dads to get together and talk about the things that we want to talk about, including movies, sports, pop culture, and have a little bit of fun at each other's expense. The link to that channel will be in the description below. My number 1 Christmas movie is actually a little bit of a cheat because it's 2 Christmas movies, and that is Home Alone and Home Alone 2, Lost in New York. Both films are directed by Chris Columbus. They star Catherine O'Hara, Joe Pesci, Daniel Stern, and Macaulay Culkin in the lead role as Kevin McAllister. Both films have essentially the same plot as Kevin gets left home alone away from his family. His family is going on vacation. He's supposed to go with them. And of course, through the hustle and bustle of everything, he actually gets left behind. Or in the case of the second film, he actually gets separated from them at the airport and ends up in an entirely different city. So the family ends up going on their vacation. And while they're on the plane, or in the case of the second one, when they're at the airport, they actually realize at that point that he's not with them. Now, is it realistic that it happens not only once, but twice?
I don't think so.
But it sure makes for an interesting story, as Kevin initially has a lot of fun. He meets some interesting people and gets into some interesting situations, but eventually he ends up yearning for his family. And of course, his family's trying to get back to him. But the real fun of these movies and why I have them at my number 1 spot is because of the 2 criminals, Harry and Marv. These 2 are a blast. They are scum. At first, they're trying to rob Kevin's house, and in the second one, they're trying to rob a toy store and take this money that's supposed to belong to this children's orphanage. And of course, Kevin foils that. And the interactions between these 3 are absolutely hilarious. And of course, Kevin just seems to find a way to get the better of them.
Don't you know a kid always wins against 2 idiots?
He sets all sorts of traps for them, and of course they walk right into them. He drops things on their faces, they get their hands burned, their heads burned, all sorts of things seem to happen to them. Just, you can't help but laugh as to what he puts them through because, again, these 2 are scum, and what they're trying to do to rob his house on Christmas and, of course, rob the money from this children's orphanage. You can't help but enjoy seeing them get what's coming to them, and I just found these movies to be absolutely hilarious. They are movies that I watch each and every Christmas, and both of them are my number 1 favorite Christmas movie. Well, there you have it. There's my ranking of my favorite Christmas movies. Once again, I'd really like to know which ones are your favorites, so don't forget to let me know in the comments section below. If you're still watching this long, I'd like to thank you for joining me. Don't forget to hit that like button, share the video, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you real soon.